everyone. Welcome to my talk. I turned 22 in 22. This talk, well, is different parts. I don't know if you have kids around that age, around between 18 and 22. But in this next 30 minutes, I will give you a little bit more perspective. What is the newest generation and what's the impact today? You have probably heard a lot about Generation Y, that generation that has now 30, 35 years old, and even kids. But the newest generation is really different. First of all, before starting and diving deeper, I would like to maybe explain who I am and why I'm talking and why I'm so close about generation. I have an agency in Brussels. The name of the agency is 20something. And this agency is now 15 years old. And the particularity of this agency is that more than 400 youngsters apply every year to have an internship in our agency. So 400 youngsters apply for that internship, and we keep 40 people. And the particularity of this generation of the agency. May I ask you guys to maybe close your micro, that we don't have any extra noises? Thank you. The particularity of the generation is, in this generation we have in this agency, sorry, we have two teams. We have a normal team and we have a youngster team. As soon as receiving a briefing from a brand like Heineken or from Pringles or from Kellogg's, the briefing goes to the normal agency with older people like me. I'm 42, and the briefing goes to the youngsters. And the first meeting with the client meets not only the older generation, but meets as well the youngsters, and they discover how the youngsters perceive and understand the brands. So far, I have worked with in the last 15 years with more than 500 youngsters and try to understanding how they think and how they perceive the world and how they perceive brands. And I would like to with this talk a little bit sharing the learnings of the last years, because like you know, with the COVID, a lot of things has changes and particularly that generation. But first of all, about generations, today we are in a special moment, because never in the history we worked with so many generations. And let's diving a little bit deeper in different generations. First of all, I don't know if there are people from between 56 and 76 years old. If yes, well, you are baby boomers on the end of the career. And today, and it's not easy for the youngsters, they are still there and leaders in meetings, and they have their own vision that is basically totally different of Generation Z. Generation X is my generation, and this generation between 42 and 55 is a generation of work hard, play hard. When I was young, my parents pushed me to study as much as possible high-level school, Latin, Greek in beginning, and then university, because I've been educated to say how much you learn, how much you find a great job. And I did everything what my parents said. I studied, and then I took a great job with a car. And I had a lot of pressure because I knew if I was not the best, another person will take my job. So we were in that work hard, life hard generation. And the whole life long, we did exactly what the society and what our parents ask us. And in fact, we had like a very perfect role in patterns that the community and the society was expecting from us. And then probably, you know it, Generation Y came in the around 2000. The last 10, 20 years, well, the last 10 years, most of all, we talk about this generation. It was like really like this generation that all the brands want to seduce. It's a bit like the show The Voice. Every brand was like a jury and tried to seduce and push on the button to seduce youngsters. That generation that was particularly because it was the first generation that was connecting with social media, was digital, and changed totally the battle of how we communicated. And then the last generation, Generation Z, who are now between 11 and 25. And I would say this Generation Y was really special, but Generation G is totally different. And if you were thinking that Generation Y was a really change in communication and how you communicate as brand with them, well, you will be surprised how Generation Z are thinking about brands and communication. You have, of course, the stereotype of Generation Z. They are perceived as tech dependent for sure. They have no attention. They perceive are of people who don't know what they want. They are more connected with the phone, and easier to talk with them by phone and by emojis than a live or normal conversation. And of course, there's a lot of stereotypes about this youngsters between 11 and 25. And why I try to know to explain to you, are the stereotypes really right? Do we really can we really trust about the stereotypes? Well, generations are basically be thinking, well, it's so doctors and specialists in generation that start to put them in clusters. And it's true that we can regroup generation by group of ages, but today we can't put all those generation between the youngsters between 11 and 25 in one big group. I would compare it a bit like a shelf in supermarkets. When you go in a supermarket and you go in one shelf, you see a lot of products from the same category. But when you're in the shelves, you discover that in the same group of category of products, there are different types of products and different prices and qualities and different USPs in the same shelves. And this is a bit the same of this generation. Of course, you can see that the group of 11, 25 years old is one same group, and they have particularities together, the age, and they see a part of life the same way. But in this generation, we feel different products and different way of thinking. And I would like to explain to you why there's so big gap today with this one and with the oldest generation. A generation is always be influenced by events. You remember September 11. For those of you who remember September 11, you remember the financial crisis of 2008, and all those big events from the last years. And of course, these big events like the crisis of 2008 and September 11 had an impact on the next years. Mostly, I would say 5, maximum 15 years. So yes, of course, events like 2008 has an impact and changed the way that the world has moved on. But the COVID situation right now will not have an impact of 15 years, but probably will have an impact of 2 generations. And that's really a big change in the future. There's a life before and a life after. And it's quite difficult to understand what do you mean with a life before and after? And I will give you a really concrete example to that you understand, you who are listening to this talk, how different it is and how they perceive it differently. Do you remember exactly where you were on September 11? I'm probably sure that on September 11, you remember exactly the moment that the flight crashed on the 2 buildings. You were probably maybe at work, or you were at home watching TV, and you can precisely remember that moment that had an impact in media and had an impact in the whole world. But first of all, I would like maybe share you a video from the generation that from since the beginning that they are born until now, to show you what they have lived for the last 20 years. Let's see the video. Can somebody? Yeah.
with the terrorists.
We can't hear you, Benoit.
Sorry, I'm back. I say you have seen now the last 20 years, all the events that they have go through since they are born. I give you the example of September 11. And like like I asked you, you probably remember what is September 11. And September 11 was part for you, for your history. But for them, it's that September 11 was part of you from your story of your life. It's part of your life, but for them, it's history. It's like the same thing for the Second War. They can't imagine. They don't have going through that moment where the crash has been, where the plane has been crashed in the building. And this is a big difference. There's already a gap. Just one story, just September 11. For you, it's part of your story. For them, it's part of history. And this making really the difference. They don't see the things. They can't understand what you have going through of that moment. They can't even imagine how you felt on this moment, because for them, they have only seen it on social media or YouTube, but they have no the emotion link that you had with the crash, with what life was before. And this is just one example. But about the going deeper and diving deeper in youngster, I would like to compare it as a brand. Imagine that a youngster today between 18 and 25 is a strong brand. What do you need for a strong brand? You have a USP, a unique selling proposition, and you have an emotion selling proposition. And what is the rational characteristics from a youngsters today? First of all, they are digital transformation. That's for sure. Everybody knows that this Generation Z is particularly linked with, has a particular link with digital, like Generation Y. But the big difference with the Generation Z and Generation Y is that they have been born with this digital. Since they are 2 or 3, they're on a laptop, and the education has not coming from the older generation like me. I've been educated by my parents. If I had a questions, is the teachers give me the solutions of my parents answer all the questions that I had. They have been all directly, they find a solution or the answer on the questions by digital. Since they are born, they go to YouTube and they try to understand it. And this is a really first big difference, is that there's a really, like, how can I say it? Like the transmission between the previous generation is broken. They find themselves the solutions, and this is a first, that's positive but negative as well. They had no like filter to see what's wrong and right and perceive themselves, and made themselves this education. And that brings us on a second part of the real differentiation of this generation is this: it's an horizontal generation. And what does it mean in a horizontal generation? Is that they are so disappointed about the world because they realize that they have in the next, well, 15 years, they have to battle with a lot of problems. First of all, economic problems. They've been born since the crisis has been always part of their life. Second part, the ecologic problems, because since previous generations, they have heard that the previous generation would like to change the world about ecology, but nothing happens. And so far, this generation is not really believing anymore and has totally not made trust anymore in older generation. And the only generation that they really trust is their own. So it's the first generation that really has a break between the oldest one, and they believe only their own generation. They only try to understand and to and to talk with their own bubble. Their own bubble in their social media, because they have a lot of friends. Today, when they want to communicate it on TikTok, they have like more than 1,000 people can react, and they have like a communication with them, and they stays in their own bubble. And it's quite dangerous because before, in the previous one, well, there was like a cursor of moderator by the older one that tried to change them, change the way that they're thinking, or at least try to influence them. And today there's they are not being influenced anymore about the previous ones. That's the second part. The third one, and you probably know it in your industry as well, it's the slash generation. In my generation X, I studied university, and I've been prepared to be the best in one particular specialization, marketing or whatever. Today, because they've been educated by themselves, and because they touch so many things in social media and digital, they do a lot of things, but not really deeply. So, and they don't want to be like one precise thing. They, of course, they study, but they would like the singers, they like informatica, they like friends. And today you have, in fact, a generation that do a lot of things, quantitative, but not really qualitative. And this is a quite big gap between the previous one, because we're expecting from somebody who's working in our company to be the best ones and to really go diving deeper and to work in our companies for 5, 6, 7 years. Today, a youngster doesn't want to stay in a company for 5, 6, 7, or 10 years. Even they don't believe in that, because they have seen their parents who worked hard in the companies and be fired after 10 years or 20 years hard working. So the trust that I explained just before is lost as well in a company. And another example is that it's a generation of instant gratification. When they put something on social media, they're expecting an immediately gratification by likes or comments by their friends or their fans. If they don't have enough gratification what they post, well, they put the post away. So they used to have immediately by their parents and by their friends a quick win feedback. In companies today, how you receive minimum 1 or 2 maximum feedbacks by year, and they miss really a connection by the leaders and they feel lost because they feel that they can't be delighted in what they're really good at it. But there's a paradox in generation is the relationship with the parents. I told you that they have a really, they break totally the connection with in general, but the connection with the parents is really strong and has never been so strong because of the pandemic. In the pandemic, they had a role. First of all, they educate the parents on social media, on Zoom, and on all this platform, because the homeworking makes things change totally the battle. And this generation helps the parents and grandparents to be connected and to reconnect it in the digital world. And they feel again a really value in family, and that brings exactly a strong relationship in the family. So this is the paradox. In the family, there's a big connection. Out of the family, they lost totally the connection with politics or with all their communities. Another surprising effect about this generation is the emotion values. Generation Z had emotion value at 21, and Generation X had an emotion value at 18 or 21 years old. They were able to judge what is good as not good. Generation Y was around 16. Today, this generation is able to judge what they like and don't want like, or how they perceive world at 14 years old. At 14 years old already, they make choices what is important for them. In every family, you have a Greta who believes or educate the parents that they don't be agree about how they eat, live, or about the ecology. And this is not only for ecology, but for many things, about gender, about politics, about any big topics of the world. This generation already has a view about how they perceive it. And the big difference with the other ones, they want to move on. They don't accept that we say we will find a solution in 2 or in 10 or 5 years. They want really to change, and they're really frustrated this generation takes so long time to move on in results, in solutions of the problems today. So yeah, the scar generations, like I did in my introductions, there's a really scarf, and they probably have, the scarf will be taking a long time and will be an impact about how they will educate their children, how they will looking for a new job, or the work-life balance is one of the first concrete things that today the generation doesn't want any more work for money, but will find a good balance between the private life and the work life. And if companies today don't move on in proposing a way of working where they can be delighted in their qualities that they have, and in how they see the company or perceive the vision of their own life, they will leave, and they will not stay for real. If you compare with my generation, we stay as long as possible in a company, because we are scared if we move on that we will not win money, and money is a driving seat, and for this generation totally not. I would like to share you maybe the emotion values and
I don't trust the younger generation in terms of values, because I don't even think they know what it is that they value.
There's a term swirling nowadays, okay boomer. Okay boomer. Okay boomer trend. It's going viral, almost like a demeaning term to older people.
The millennials in Generation Z have the Peter Pan syndrome.
Okay, boomer, why can't you love me as much as you love to share memes about me? Fuck being good, I'm a bad bitch. I'm sick of motherfuckers trying to tell me how to live. Dumb hoes hate under my pictures on the gram. Bitch, you better hope I never run across your man. In the mall with him, I'ma have a ball with him. Somebody call Rihanna, I'ma buy some draws with him. He fucking with the state cause he in the wild women. Put them legs on his head, now he love tall women. You'll never catch me calling these niggas daddy. I ain't lying by my nut just to make a nigga happy. Lifestyle when a nigga can't fit a magnum. It never happened if the dick wasn't snapping. I'm a hot girl, I do hot shit. Finish income on my outfit. On my outfit quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me. I'm a hot girl, I do hot shit. Finish income on my outfit. On my outfit quick, cause I ain't thirsty. These bitches mad, they wanna hurt me.
I just think that this generation carries an incredible amount of potential on its shoulders. And while there are people encouraging this potential, there are also people who aren't really giving us a chance.
Cause the way that ass shake, I'ma make them eat me out while I'm watching anime.
Okay, we have only 4 minutes, but I will give you one big example how you can change things. It's a recruitment process. You probably all recruit youngsters, and it's really difficult to attract them. But today, how do you recruit? You ask them to send an email. They don't even have emails. The only email that I have is that when they have to be connecting on something. So asking them an email, writing some CVs is like mission impossible to them. So what you try to have to understand is living with them and try to understand how they would like to be connecting with you. And how we hire at 20-something is really simple. The first person that we meet is the best friends. So so we have a Hire My Best Friend program. Why? Because when they make a decision, when they have questions or problems, they call the best friends. They don't call their parents anymore. So by inviting first the best friends, first of all, we discover the person through his best friends, and we discover why it is best friend. And it's really interesting to see first the best friend before the candidates. And together, after the discussion of 1 hour, we ask the best friend, do you think that the candidate, your friend, will like and enjoy to work in our company? And if he say yes, we invite them, the candidate, together, and together we make a decision if he's matching and if working our company will work. This is a really concrete example how you can change the battle and how you can make the difference by a recruiting process. And what I would like to advise you, if you want to connecting with youngsters, if you want to really seduce them, or if you want to change the way of working with them, the only thing you have to do is listen to them, get them as an internship, but not only do Google and researching on stupid work, but try to understand how they perceive your company. Ask them, introduce them, do a reversing mentoring in your meetings, give him some voices and try to understand, asking 4 times why they change and think like that. And maybe with a little bit empathy and with a little bit get him to the whole process of your company thinking and changing process, you will probably move on much more easier than you think, because the solution is just next to you. You have to hear about it. That's what I could advise you. We have still 2 minutes. I don't know. It's really short, and you probably understand that a talk by digital is not so easy than on stage, but feel free to or writing me. You have my website, and you can connecting with me through this or by the chat. I will be happy to give you some quick answers if you have.